Well, good morning and welcome to this Thursday Thought. Yesterday was not a good day for me. Oh, I was healthy enough as that goes. I got my work done, I ate well, and generally was comfortable. But things happened yesterday in my interactions with others that I'm not pleased with. Evidently, I wasn't very pleasant to be around, at least some of that time. I try. I really try to be at least pleasant around others, especially when things aren't going as I was hoping or wanting. However, it's really easy for me to slip into a sort of blame game or feel slighted when things like this happen. Now, I know that's not the right attitude to have, and I find myself constantly working on it with seemingly not much in the way of progress at times coming from that effort. A couple of cases in point. I had ordered some printed material from a company that I had never used before. I had set up an account, I placed the order, received a confirmation, and I waited for my order to arrive. Well, when it didn't come after a 10-day or so wait, I checked PayPal to see if they'd been paid, and they had been. I then contacted the company to ask about my order. Well, they told me that I had ordered e-material rather than paper, and they told me how I could access that material. Well, I'm not a big fan of reading books from a computer or my phone, and I generally have a distaste for electronic copies of anything. I checked my order, and sure enough, although the order page had an image of real books on it, at the top of the page was a disclaimer that it was indeed e-material. My conversation with customer service by way of email was, well, let's just say it was less than rainbows and unicorns. I broke a cardinal rule of mine to never respond immediately in a situation such as this, but rather to wait for things to settle down for a while, and then I can think more clearly and I can be more genteel with my conversation. Well, to complete the story, the customer service people were treated with less well, or less than well, I suppose, by me in my emails to them. And in spite of that, they graciously and immediately refunded my payment. Well, on another note, it's usually easy when driving in Wichita to become irritated by something another driver does. It could be someone speeding past you 30 miles an hour over the limit, maybe cutting in front of you, maybe failing to use their blinker, not starting out when the light changes to green because they're texting, or any number of other issues. Well, yesterday it was especially difficult for me on the road. I found myself criticizing other drivers rather than driving defensively and giving them the benefit of the doubt. Now, I really do work on this, and I try to keep an even keel when I'm driving, but yesterday probably wasn't one of those days. I'm not a perfect driver myself, and I have no business criticizing others. In fact, I was reminded of the words of Jesus, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." Well, that certainly applied to me, and I could not possibly be a stone caster in that situation. So today, I did a penance of sorts. I found myself behind a vehicle on Kellogg this morning that was doing 56 miles an hour in the middle lane. Well, rather than be irritated that he wasn't going the speed limit, I just stayed behind him at a respectable distance, and I just followed him, intentionally, just a few miles an hour under the limit. He was doing nothing wrong. Driving 56 miles an hour in the middle lane in a 60-mile limit zone is not unlawful. It was a good lesson for me to not be in such a hurry, not criticize or make judgments, not create stress on myself because of such a trivial matter. The fact that everyone and their horse was passing us on both sides was not something I should be concerned about. I have learned to be content, Paul the Apostle said. Well, Paul, I'm still learning, and staying behind this gentleman for a few miles was a great example of how I sometimes make myself learn. Paul, in his Colossian letter, also asks his fellow believers, and I quote here, to be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity, and let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Well, Paul was speaking specifically here of creating opportunities to tell the good news of Jesus Christ. But the principle holds for all of our interactions with others. And I'm afraid I didn't do very well yesterday with that thing about having my conversation being full of grace. Even at this age, I'm still learning, still seeking, still refining, still growing. And I pray that you too will act in wisdom, always graceful in your interactions with others. You know, it's so desperately needed in today's world. Blessings.